We have reviewed the concepts of the production possibilities frontier, and now we need to look into how it play a role into trade between countries. Most countries operate in an open market economy where individuals choose to engage in the exchange of goods and services. When a nation reviews their economic policy, there are three fundamental economic questions that must be considered. What will be produced? How would those goods be produced, and how would those goods be distributed to consumers? Once those questions have been answered, it becomes a matter of which economic practice is going to be used to execute the plan. This is where understanding the theory of free trade and protectionism comes into play. If you recall from previous recordings, we have established that resources are scarce. As a result of this belief, nations tend to select one of the two international trade practices: free trade, in which international trade is present without restriction, such as tariffs, quotas, or limitations set by the government or ruling authority. The second international trade practice is protectionism, where it is a policy that protects domestic industries by placing restrictions such as tariffs on goods being imported into the country from overseas competitors. Both international trade practices have their pros and cons. With free trade, individuals and the nations themselves are able to make their own decisions on how they engage in the market and determine the prices of overall goods. The downside of free trade is that, for example, if one country tends to be more productive than another in a particular industry, this may lead to a loss of jobs and overall economic decline. On the other hand, the idea behind protectionist policies is to ensure that domestic industries do not succumb or fail to such fluctuations, and theoretically the nation's economy will supposedly grow. In reality, what actually happens is the domestic producers come to the realization that they do not have an overseas competitor that is selling the exact same good. With the absence of this competitor, the domestic producer increases the overall prices of their goods, hurting the consumer. Therefore, protectionist policies tend to help producers more than it helps consumers over the long term. There are two economic historical examples that support this line of reasoning, and they would be the Corn Laws of the 1800s in England, which is said to have led to the potato famine in Ireland, and the tariffs that were passed in the United States Congress that contributed to the Great Depression of the 1930s. The individuals that are considered to be the fathers of international trade theory are Adam Smith and David Ricardo. In 1776, Smith authored The Wealth of Nations, where he discussed the division of labor, production, and the invisible hand, allowing choice in a free market. His ideas were expanded by the writings of David Ricardo, who reviewed the practices of international trade. This is examined through the concept of absolute and comparative advantage, which will be discussed thoroughly in the next recording.